continue on that thought of what did you leave at the well, and look at us as individuals. Maybe we'll get back to that at some point, but we're going to go this way if that likes. We'll be obedient. 2 Kings chapter number 6. For time's sake, we begin reading in verse number 15. 2 Kings chapter number 6, verse number 15. The Bible said, and when the servant of the man of God was risen early and gone forth, behold, an host compassed the city, both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? And he answered, Fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. And Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes, that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountains were full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. And when they came down to him, Elisha prayed unto the Lord, and said, Smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness. And he smote them with blindness, according to the word of Elisha. And we read these stories, very familiar. For Bible readers, you've read a whole lot. I'm sure you've read about this, heard about this. We brought up a point or two of it, I guess, a month or so back in a message maybe. We didn't read the text by any means, but we began to look. But if you was to look back and see in time what was going on here, the children of Israel had been under attack by the king of Syria and all those men, and they kept trying to bushwhack them. In reality, the king of Syria would tell his men in his chamber, said, Hey, I want you to send the troops over here, and the children of Israel at this place, and they'll come through this mountain or through this valley. And when they come through this place, I want you to kill them when they get there. And Elisha, the Lord told these things to Elisha, and Elisha told the king of Israel, said, Hey, don't go that way, they're there waiting for you, and said, Go around about another way, and he delivered them multiple times. And I'm glad God speaks to us and delivers us from things sometimes, but sometimes he has to take us through some things, and that's all right. But here they are, the king of Syria asked his servants, and which one of y'all is a traitor pretty much? Which one of y'all has turned and is for the king of Israel now? He's mad at this point in time, and one of the servants spoke up and said, Lord, it ain't any of us. Said it's Elisha. Said the Lord's telling him, and Elisha's telling the king of Israel. And he said, Well, I need to know where Elisha is. I'm never going to defeat them unless I do away with him. And right here in our text, they've told him, said, Hey, he's down in Dothan. If you're going to find him, you're going to have to go down to Dothan to get him. In verse number 13 and in verse number 14, they sent the horses and the chariots and the great host, and they circled around. They encamped the city that night, and here this young man wakes up in verse number 15, and he walks out in the morning, and I almost see it as when he gets up, maybe he's stretching there a little bit, got his arms out in the front of the cave, just kind of moving around, looking around a little bit, and he looks out there, and all he sees is these chariots, and he sees the horses, and he sees the men, and oh my gosh, his day's ruined. He ain't even had his first cup of coffee yet, and his day's done bad, and I got to thinking about how many times we find ourselves in that situation. The phone rings, and we look on the news, we look on the internet, we check our emails or our voicemails, and we've got some bad news. And man, it's just run our whole day before it's ever even started off. I mean, it's just bad. Here he's gotten up, and he's gone out there, and he's seen all these things. He's already surrounded by trouble. A lot of times you and I get up, and we head out to work, or these kids head out to school, and man, it's just one issue right after the next, and it seems like we've been better off when you stayed in bed, or if we just give up and quit, and it just seems like it's no good and for no purpose. And this man looked back, and he said, Man, I don't know what we're going to do. He looked back at his master, and he said, How are we going to do this? How are we going to do? How are we going to get through this? And I'm afraid we're in that situation a lot in this life. We deal with so much, and we deal with this, and we deal with that, but it just seems like, hey, enough's enough. We can't go any further. He says, What are we going to do? But I'm glad he had a master to cry out to, aren't you? He cried out and he said, Alas, master, how shall we do? Verse number 16, his master Elisha answered. And he said, Fear not. Boy, that seems goofy, doesn't it? Here you are, two men stuck in a cave. Ain't nowhere you can go. You ain't going to get away from it. You can't run from it. You can't hide from it. It's there. You're going to have to deal with it. And here they got the bows, and they got the swords, and they got everything else, and they ain't even got a weapon probably up there in this cave. And they're surrounded. And the first thing his master says, Hey, fear not. That just sounds foolish. I mean, what would it be like if we start looking out these windows of church tonight and there's people got guns all around us? And I mean, they're they're just standing there fully automatic, and I mean, they're just ready to start blasting out the windows, blasting through the building, and the first thing I tell you, hey, don't worry about it, it's okay. That seemed crazy, wouldn't it? So no doubt he thinks, man, this guy's done lost his mind, he's done hit his head. He's just trying to comfort us. He's just trying to do whatever. But his master reminds him of something great. He says, fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. He said, there's a bigger army. There's a bigger picture. See, what you and I see a lot of times is the small part. And you say, preacher, it's bigger than I can handle. That's all right. It's nothing God can't handle. It's nothing God can't deal with. But when he looked out, he saw all this and he saw all that, but he couldn't see beyond. He couldn't see any further. He couldn't see the big picture. He couldn't see what really mattered. Why were these men there to attack them? Because they were serving God, because they were being faithful, because they were being obedient. Why does the world and the devil desire to attack you and I tonight? Because you're trying to do God's will. If you're out there living any old way, doing any old thing, the devil ain't bothering you one little bit. He's done lulled you to sleep, got you going the other direction. He just lets you be peaceful, let you be fine. But you make up your mind you're going to stand against the devil, you're going to stand against the things of the devil, and you're going to stand for what's right, you're going to start having some problems, you're going to start finding some enemies. And I'm glad he said, hey, there's more of us than there are of them. That makes me feel a little bit better about the matter. Every bunch of people walk in here and this, that, and that, and you think, man, this is bad. And then all of a sudden you start seeing the big picture and there's somebody bigger and tougher than them standing behind them. I start feeling like the odds is getting a little equal. I'd like to have greater odds on my side even than equal, just to be honest with you. But he told him, he said, hey, there's greater the number of us than there are of them. See, you and I, we get stuck out there in the world and we feel a little belittled in the places. You get laughed at, you get mocked, well, they're this, they're that, they're the other. But then when the church of God in reality assembles together, it's far bigger than that. There's more of us than there are of them in reality, of all the believers. But oftentimes we begin to worry, we begin to fear, we begin to doubt because we can't see beyond our issue, beyond our troubles, beyond our trials, beyond our situations or circumstances. In verse number 17, watch this. The Bible said Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about Elisha. Isn't that wonderful right there tonight that God's got something surrounding you and I? The book of Psalms said that the angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him. And we read about the story of Job over there, how Satan went to God and desired to touch him. And God said, he said, hey, there's a hedge around about him. I'm glad you and I are protected a lot further than we realize tonight. But we see the prayer of the man of God. It wasn't God remove the issue. It wasn't God take care of the problem. It was simply this, hey God, would you just open his eyes and would you let him see? There's some times that you and I just need to open our eyes spiritually and see a little bit further than what we're facing and going through and see the big pictures. We need to open our eyes there and see that God's still on the throne. He's still in control. There ain't nothing too big or too hard for him. His grace is still sufficient. But I'm glad there was a way to pray. When you and I are defeated and discouraged, aren't you glad you can pray God's faithful to help? God opened the eyes of this young man in verse number 17. Watch verse number 18. And when they came to him, hey, are these people still coming, Brother Dan? They're just marching on down the mountain. They ain't paying any attention to what's behind them. They don't see the things of God or see the big picture either. But they're marching on down through there. No doubt this young man sees the enemy, but he sees the victory behind them, if you will. And here these men start coming toward Elisha. And Elisha, like Christ, on the cross didn't call out for the angels. He didn't call out for deliverance. He just calls out unto God and said, Lord, smite these people. And he said, I don't want you to kill them. I just want you to close their eyes. He smites them with blindness. He did exactly what Elisha asked. Aren't you glad God helps us right in the midst of our wars, right in the midst of our struggles, right in the midst of our problems? I'm glad when we're in the midst of these trials, in the midst of these situations and circumstances, and we can't find a way out, I'm glad help's only a prayer away. Our troubles often overcome us because we can't see beyond them. But there's some things you and I need to see tonight. As we've read these 3, 4 simple verses here this evening, I want to show you 4 things right quick that they needed to see, that young man needed to see, and that you and I need to see. And I believe they'll help us no matter what we're facing and going through. First and foremost, we need to see the presence of God. When these troubles and trials come in your life, the first thing you need to figure out is where God's at. You need to figure out where He is and what He's doing. Though they're surrounded by the enemy, they were not alone. Isn't that good to know? Have you ever noticed when troubles and trials come, that's the first thing the devil does and the world does, is tries to make you feel like you're the only one, and tries to make you feel like nobody else has ever faced this, or nobody else has ever been through this, and you feel so defeated and so discouraged. And that's the reason we give up and quit a lot of times, or feel like it, because we think we're the only one. But Elisha said, son, I want you to realize something. You're not all by yourself. He said, we can call out to God at any point in time, and God's right here with us. I'm glad Christ said, I will not leave thee nor forsake thee. I'll be with you always, even unto the end of this world. The Bible said there is a very present help even in the times of our troubles. And I'm glad that He's always there. He's always there. Ask those three Hebrew boys what they know about Him. It's before the man that ever even met Christ is Christ. Here they are, they won't bend, they won't bow, they won't burn. They're bound and cast into that fiery furnace. It was hotter than it was wont to burn up the men that threw them inside that thing. But I want you to notice who was in there when the king looked down there. There's a fourth man. He was like none of the Son of God. I'm glad He's right there through our fiery test. He's right there through our fiery trials. He's right there when the fiery tongues come. He's right there when we need Him. He is exactly what we need. Amen. Jesus, J-E-S-U-S, just exactly suits us sinners. Isn't that pretty good? Old Buster Seeker said all the time. I thought, man, that's crazy. But I got to thinking, what is God? He's exactly what you need. He's exactly what we need, and when we need it, He'll take good care of us if we'll just trust Him. But they had to realize that He was there. I thought about old Paul. Old Paul's been beat, he's been battered, he's been shipwrecked, he's been in prison, and he's finally brought down there, and he's finally brought before the judge, an unrighteous, unruly judge. And when he's brought before him, he's standing there to give an account of all these things. And as he's standing there, he said, at first call, no man stood with me. He said, there wasn't nobody there, I was all alone. But thank God for Acts chapter number 27 when he said, but the Lord stood by me. Hey, there'll be people that'll come in your life and they'll love you and they'll love you and they'll care for you. But when the storms come, when the trials come, when tribulations come, they'll leave you and they'll leave you and they'll leave you and they'll turn on you and they'll beat you and they'll batter you. But I'm glad there's a friend that loves at all times. I'm glad there's one that's sticking closer than a brother. I'm glad I've found a faithful friend, aren't you? He's faithful. No wonder Solomon said He's altogether lovely. He's altogether lovely. There's many times in this life it seems like we might be taken over, defeated at any point in time. But standing somewhere in the shadow, He's always there. He's always right there to help us. Not only we see the presence of God, it's good knowing God's there. But I'm glad knowing that not only is He there, but I'm glad He does something when He's there. Not only we see the presence of God, but we see the protection of God. Though they were completely surrounded and all alone, they would have been an easy target. They'd have been defeated, discouraged, and destroyed and put to death real easy. But I'm glad God had an army there to protect them, aren't you? Aren't you glad God's got a way of taking good care of His people? I thought about Jesus. He talked about we were sealed in the Father's hand over there. He talked about us being in the Father's hand. He said, hey, my Father's never lost one. Hey, you're in good hands. That commercial used to come in all the time. He'd say, hey, you're in good hands with Allstate. And Jonathan would be little. He was about acting near Gabby's size. And he'd speak up and say, hey, you better get in God's hands if you're going to be in good hands. But I'm glad Jesus said, I've never lost one that the Father gave me. And my Father's greater than them all. He's never lost one. Hey, you get inside the hand of God and it's going to be hard to do a whole lot. It's going to be hard to do any more than He lets you do. When somebody's got a hold on you, amen, it makes a difference. Right. We see the protection of God. I'm glad the Spirit of God protects us. Remember all the things that David went through in his life. He had a 9-foot bear giant standing in front of him. He had a bear take his sheep. He had a lion take his sheep. And he said, hey, you come at me with the spear and with the sword. He said, I come to you in the name of the Lord. David, in the midst of all that stuff, he said that you're my glory and you're the uplifter of my head. You're all those things. But you know what he said even greater than that? He said, you're my shield. You you think about a shield, and you read instead of the definition of the word for shield, it means you're my protection. It means you've got me covered in the front, you've got me covered in the back, you've got me covered on the sides, you've got me covered up above, you've got me covered down below. I'm telling you, He covers us more than a glove does. We're covered on all sides. There ain't going to be anything that comes before us that God don't deal with. There ain't nothing going to get us from behind unless God's back there. If we go left, if we go right, if we go up and go down. David said, if I make my bed in hell, that God would be with me. I'm talking about the protection of God. Aren't you glad He protects us? He keeps us. And I'm persuaded that He is able to keep that I've committed to Him against that day. I'm glad He keeps and protects us, aren't you? But we see the presence of God. We see the protection of God. I want you to see the power of prayer when you actually can get a hold of God. He prayed not once but twice right here in the midst of these verses. In verse number, he prayed in verse 16. And he prayed in verse 17. He prayed in verse number 18. And in verse 17, the Bible said Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes that he might see. That's a pretty simple little prayer right there, ain't it? But I'm glad Elisha didn't have to sit back and wait weeks. He didn't have to wait months. He didn't have to wait years. Because as soon as you pray, God hears your prayer. You don't have to speak in some unknown tongue. You don't have to yell it real loud. You don't have to say it real soft. Heck, you ain't even got to say it at all when you don't know how to pray or what to pray. The Spirit makes groanings inside of us that God understands. He knows what we have need of before we ask it. And He's faithful and able to supply all of our needs according to His riches and glory by Christ Jesus. He's able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all you and I can ask or even think. So Elijah didn't even bat an eye. He said, God, just open his eyes that he might see. You know what we need to be praying in our day and hour? We need to be praying to God to open the eyes of our loved ones. They might see their need of God. That they might see, see, they think that army that's surrounding them, they think they're their friends, they think they love them and they care for them, that they might open their eyes and see that there's a greater army, there's a legion of darkness out there that's going to overtake them if they keep going down the path that they're going. They need to open their eyes and see the reality that they need a Savior. But you and I need to pray in the midst of it that God would help us to stand strong in the midst of adversity. When we're surrounded by situations and circumstances, instead of waving the white flag or surrender, instead of giving up and quitting, we need to pray for those that are defeated, pray for those that are discouraged, and say, God, would you just open their eyes and help them to see? There's a lot of people give up on serving God, and they went back because they've been surrounded by troubles and trials, and because they couldn't find their Savior for their situation. But I'm glad you and I can pray, and God can still open their eyes. You know what happened when their eyes was open? He gave them victory. He gave them victory. But not only pray, Lord, would you open his eyes? When he opened his eyes, he saw the things around about him. Even though you and I see real good, we don't see what we ought to see. I was talking to a couple of those men the other day at work, and it seems like a lot of times all we see is the trouble. All we see is the trials. All we see is the burdens. You know what? If we look, we don't have to look real far. We'd see the blessings of God. That's what's happened to old-time worship and all those things in our day. We don't see any further than the situation and the circumstance. We don't see far enough to see the Savior. But I'm glad if we look a little bit further, we can see Him as He is, where He is, and we can see help and hope right in the midst of it all. We see their victory through prayer. When we're outnumbered, when we're overpowered, I'm glad we can still pray, aren't you? There's times that you and I can't physically do anything. But I'm glad no matter how far down we go, we can get down on our knees and we can still ask God for help. And God is faithful to help us. Preacher, what are you saying? I'm saying the battle's His. But the victory's ours tonight. If we just trust God through whatever we're facing or going through, just get down on your knees, amen. Just fall flat on your face, say, God, I can't. But you can. But not only we see the presence of God, the protection of God, we see the power of prayer. I want to close with this tonight. I want you to see the provision of God. God still provided when nobody else could. You can work, you can labor. We need to work, we need to labor. But there's times that you can't get what you need. There's times you can beg, you can borrow, you can steal when you can't get what you need. When it seemed like they were surrounded and there wasn't any way, you know what happened? God made a way. God made a way. How many times have you been in your life? Think about that tonight. Just stop right there. How many times have you been in a situation, or have you been in a circumstance in your life and thought, man, there just ain't no way. There's no way I can do anything about this. There ain't nobody that can help me. You know what? Jesus can. That's right. So, Lord, we're surrounded by an army. Lord, we've got all sorts of issues and trouble. God, don't send the army to kill them. Well, I'd like to see them get saved, see them get right. God, would you just close their eyes for a minute? You can read the story here. Elisha said, Lord, would you just close their eyes? God, would you just blind them for a little bit? And he led them down there to the captain of the army of Israel. He brought them into the midst of that city down there where the Israelites were, right in Samaria. And he said, God, now I want you to open their eyes and let them see. When they opened their eyes, the king of Israel had his sword drawn back and said, hey, you want me to slay them? You want me to kill them? Hey, what should we do? And he said, no, if you took them by a bow or took them by a sword and brought them captive, would you kill them? He said, no, I want you to take and feed them. You know what we need to do? We need God to close their eyes to things of this world for a while. Let them see the love of the church. Let them see the love of Christ. God provided. He talked about those that speak evil and do evil things to us. He said, just give them what they need and love them. Amen. He put coals on their head. I wonder what this man felt like when he was brought before the army, thinking he's fixed to be put to death. They start feeding him and giving the greatest things ever. It talks about what a meal they put together. Preacher, what are you saying? I'm saying His grace is sufficient. He'll supply all of our needs. God gave them victory, and they never even had to battle. They weren't big enough to win this war. They weren't enough to win it on their own. So God said, hey, I'll just tell you where they are. I'll tell you what they're doing. And God gave them victory. But then they never took out their sword. They never fired a gun. They never done anything. And God gave them a victory they could not obtain. How much more victory could we have if we just give it to God in prayer? God, help us to remove our own blinders so we might see You. That's my prayer. God, help us not to see the situation. Help us to not see the circumstance. But help us to see You. Because when you see that He's there, you've got the protection. You can pray with power. And God's going to provide all your needs. Isn't that wonderful knowing 4 simple little verses? And I can preach the rest of the night out of these 4 verses, just seeing some simple things. But church, there's some things we need to see. There's some things that we need to just forget about. It's a harsh reality. I don't know what your need is tonight, but I can tell you God's here. God's here. God wants to help you. The only difference between getting help or not is when you bring it to Him. They could have sit right there, Brother Danny, and the enemies would have come, and I believe God would have allowed them to be destroyed if they didn't ask God for help. He said, you have not, why? Because you asked God. You know what? They wouldn't have got any help if they didn't ask. Elijah said, hey, I'm just going to pray about it. God's going to help. I wonder how many times we get defeated and discouraged, and we lose battles that God's already given us victory in because we won't just give it to God. Whatever it is you're facing, you're going through tonight, whatever it's got you surrounded, you bring it to Him. Father,